This episode is brought to you by Chirp, a wireless DePIN project that aims to connect the largest number of devices with the blockchain. If you like Web3 projects with real-world utility and you can't forgive yourself for missing Helium, here's a worthy competitor that gives you a second chance. Make sure to visit chirptoken.io and sign up for their early adopter NFT and minor waitlist. Alright, hello everyone, Daniel from DePIN Hub over here, and today I have Ayush, CEO and co-founder of a company called Huddle01. Huddle01 is building a dRTC, Decentralized Real-Time Communication, the infrastructure behind projects like Google Meet, Zoom, Skype, and others. Man, thanks so much for joining the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here. Let's get started. Can you tell a bit about your background, who you are, and what you're trying to build with Huddle01?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot, Daniel, for having me. I've been following your podcast for a long time now. I've been a big fan of the thing you're doing. DePIN is in a very early wave right now, and I've been seeing all your podcasts from Hive Mapper to Demo to the one with the borderless capital. I think it is great. Yeah, getting into details about myself. I'm one of the co-founder and CEO of Huddle01. I graduated back in 2016. I'm an electrical engineer by my background and studies. And at Huddle01, we are building a people-powered communication network. My background is more towards product as well as marketing. I've been joined by my co-founder in the journey of building Huddle01. He and I are from same university. We studied together. We were 3 years apart. So I graduated in 2016, he graduated in 2019. And then we met in a hackathon, which was happening in 2020 called ETH Global HackFest, where everybody was building something on the Web3 tech, but all the meetings were happening over Zoom, Google Meet, and Teams, which is very ironical because we're building a Web3 tech and we're doing all the communication over a centralized tech. And at that time, Zoom bombings was very infamous. So that's where we decided to build something in the world of decentralized real-time communication. So that's how it started.
That's awesome. That's a really nice story. I like to point as well, like electrical engineer you, electrical engineer me. The last episode I have Mike from GeoNet, is also an electrical engineer. So electrical engineers all over the place here building DePIN. That's super exciting. Where does the name Huddle01 or Huddle01, is 01 or 1? How do you guys call it properly?
Yeah, so we called it Huddle01. This name has come into picture because right now what we are doing is basically huddling. It's just that we are huddling in a digital world. So when we go in a playground, we huddle together. But if you do that in a digital world while communicating, it's happening in a digital environment, and digital is made of zeros and ones. That's why Huddle01.
Nice.
So that's how the name came into picture. And yeah, it's been live for the last 3.5 years.
Nice. Yeah, that makes sense. The binary digital huddling. Can you explain the concept? I look on your website, the people's power communication. That's what you guys are trying to go for, right? Can you give an intro about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go into the whole journey about why a people-powered communication is important, what is happening in the current landscape right now. So essentially right now, what the calls we're doing on Google Meet, on Zoom, on Microsoft Teams, all these calls are routed through central servers. So if I and you are doing a call, Daniel, let's suppose I'm in India and you are, let's suppose, in Milan, all the calls are routed through a central server. These servers are generally placed in the large server farms, which are generally just 1 or 2 places in any of these continents. Now, the more distance these kind of audio and video packets travel via optic fiber cables, the more there's heat loss, the more there is jitter, buffer, robotic voices. We have felt all of this has been felt a lot during the COVID times, and that's where Zoom stock also skyrocketed because they somehow were able to basically be much more stable as compared to others. But still, Zoom also faced a lot of issues, especially in India. If people were doing calls and they didn't have great bandwidth and connection, they were not able to do calls in a very proper manner. The reason was that the call servers are still in North Virginia and the calls are happening in India. So that led to a lot of performance issues, which included jitter, buffer, robotic voices, hey, can you hear me, and all those things. That was first. Second was the privacy issues, where all the calls were routed through a central server, which is a black box. You don't know what is happening behind your data, and anything could be done. And that's what you call data as the new oil, and people were able to basically run these kind of MLs on top of it. You don't know what was happening on top of it. The third was a top-down economy, where all the value, all the intellectual content which we are doing right now, all these content were essentially being completely, the value accrual was happening either by the platforms or by the cloud providers themselves. So none of the value was going back to the people, essentially. And that's where we decided to build a people-powered communication, which means nothing but if Ayush and Daniel are doing a call, why not Daniel becomes a server or a node of themselves and they power the calls? Essentially, she'll have a better performance because it's nearer to each other. We are nearer with the nodes are nearer than a central server. That's first. Second is that there's no kind of now problem on the issue of privacy because there's no incentive to take your data. And the third is that all the money which was earlier given to AWS for bandwidth and compute, and Jeff Bezos, bandwidth and compute, will now belong to Daniel themselves. So that's how we have been building. This will lead to a much more immersive based communication. You can think of it like an Airbnb for RTC, which is like you can open hotels in just particular locations where you have land and labor laws completely filled. But Airbnb, you and I can open from anywhere, which leads to a better quality because there's more competition and even better pricing because of the whole law of economics. And that's what we are doing for RTC, which will lead to a much immersive way to communicate. And in future, we think like how we have been seeing in these movies like Iron Man, that how we can communicate in much more immersive fashion. That's how humans should communicate, and not in a 2D based screen, with having a better privacy and also the economy belonging to them. So that's what we have been building, and that's why it's called people-powered communication.
Oh man, this gives me the goosebumps. It's super exciting. Because to be honest, yes, when we have a call, imagine every company in the world basically have transitioned into a remote company, right? And all those companies having daily calls about their products, about their futures. You don't know if what Google, Microsoft, or other companies are actually doing in terms of they're streaming that data. They could easily be transcribing everything, processing the information, and using that as an advantage for them in terms of like technology, right? So I think just pointing the privacy part of it is already super, super interesting. Besides that, on the technology side, what is required? Like, what is the main difference that you'd say between running a decentralized RTC and a centralized RTC, besides just the privacy side?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Daniel, the history behind WebRTC is it was started back in 1999. It would be between 1998, 1999. That's when it started, and Google started contributing a lot into it. So, WebRTC is not just one protocol, but a bunch of basically a sandwich protocols of many protocols in top of it, and it's called WebRTC as a whole. It was started as a peer-to-peer protocol. That means my browser can talk to your browser. There's no need of a server in between. That's how it started as. But the problem with WebRTC as a peer-to-peer protocol was that peer-to-peer cannot scale. That's the problem with peer-to-peer, at least in real-time communication. So if Ayush, Daniel, Maxine, and Sushmit, if these 4 people are on call, it's great. But if a 5th person, let's suppose Alex, comes on call, the call breaks. Because it's a mesh network and all my audio and video packets are routed through all the places. So Ayush gets data of Daniel, Maxine, Sushmit, and Alex, and his computer starts heating up and doesn't work well. This is the reason why Skype worked well for till 4 people, but post that, if you have more than 10 people, Skype starts to crash. It was not working very well. And this is where all these bigger corporations like Google, Amazon started seeing that, hey, you know what, why not make WebRTC scalable? And that's where something called as SFUs were introduced. There are more things like MCUs, but after MCUs, I'll not go into MCUs, but I'll go into SFUs. SFUs are these media servers, which are called as Smart Selective Forward Unit. These are smart media servers. That means now this server, SFUs, they sit on top of AWS and they say that, hey, Ayush, you don't need to send your data to Daniel directly or Alex directly or Maxine directly or Sushmit directly. You can just send it to a smart server. This server sits on top of AWS, and then that server basically decides that what kind of bandwidth does Daniel have, what kind of laptop is he connected to, what kind of device is he on, and then he that server sends smartly the audio and video packets to you based on what kind of bandwidth and device you can support. So you might have a great connection, so you'll get a 1080p. Sushmit might be, since he's in India, not a great connection, so he might get a 360p itself. And that's how the call became scalable. So now you could have hundreds of people of call in just basically one room, which was a completely breakthrough. But this came at a lot of cost. Because the corporations now controlled all the packets of video and audio and video packets of data, they could do anything on top of it because everything is routed through them. Also, performance started taking a hit because everybody wanted to save costings. So all the packets were routed through central server where the cheapest servers are. So that means where the server farms are bigger, every basically conferencing platform, they started routing their servers to where the cheapest EC2 instances are. And all the basically money and the value started going to these kind of bigger base servers itself. And that led to basically a kind of not a great experience in a lot of ways. So that's how the whole journey of WebRTC started. And I think I'll just cut it, Janil. What was exactly your question on that?
No, just that's exactly a good answer. Like, how does the decentralized actually works? And
Yeah.
I think it's very, very interesting because processing all this information is not very cheap, right? Because you can imagine if you have 3-4 people in a call, that's okay. But once you start increasing the number of people in the call, everybody has its specific processing. Like the server is going to be like transcribing the videos, for each person, that can be quite costly. So I can imagine as a scale, if Google is doing Google Meet for free, something needs to get from that, right? Like it's not cheap to run the service for the amount of people that Google is doing. So there must be something that they're doing, and they probably don't tell us, right?
Yeah. So yeah, I think just answering on that part, why dRTC now? dRTC essentially solves for this thing as well, where Google did a great job at that time scaling the calls to more than hundreds of people. Same was possible via Zoom and all the others, which led to a great kind of scalable calls, but it came with its own cost of performance, privacy, and a top-down economy. Now, with the emergence of peer-to-peer tech with lib P2P, more emergence in that, number one. Number two, there's a better emergence in distributed systems. That means cascading. And number three, there is a much more better kind of crypto economic tools which we have, which can lead to for us to build a much better communication infrastructures out there. So that's where you and I can become nodes and we can power the call. So all the routings should happen through our basically nodes rather than basically happening via these central servers. So think about it in a sense where in future, the apps like Zoom, these are the app layers, the infrastructures which are called CPaaS, like Agora, like Twilio, like One. These are all billion-dollar IPO-based companies, and then we'll start routing their calls not through AWS, but via this alternate network, which is the Airbnb of RTC, because it is cheaper for them, it saves the costing for them, they increase their margins, and also it leads to a better performance. So basically, it's a win-win situation for these bigger players to move away from cloud providers and move towards this specialized hardware, which is completely built for doing communication. And that's what the world is what we look forward to, where everything runs by people and leads to a much better experience.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's nice to see that you guys are already focusing on the demand a lot, right? Because I think that's what you mentioned when we had like an intro call before, is that you guys focusing first on the demand and then focus on the supply, right? Because I believe because the DePIN model works so well, the supply is quite fast and quite much easier to have than the demand side. So you guys maybe can talk a little bit about that. Like, how was building the demand side for that? Was it hard to get companies to believe in the idea of a decentralized RTC?
Yeah, absolutely, Daniel. I think while building a DePIN, you're building a marketplace at the end of the day. It is a two-sided marketplace with both the demand side and the supply side. Now, what we have observed is that if you build the supply side first, essentially, it was great during the time of Uber, which was a Web2 based company, that you build a supply fleet of drivers and then you expect demand to come towards you. But with ERC20 and all the other tokens, it's easier to bootstrap supply now in the world of Web3 because now you have an ERC20, you have better incentivization model, and you can bootstrap supply very fast. But Web3 is also a tech where the UX has not been completely solved yet. So getting the demand also becomes a bit difficult. And that's where we decided that also the supply side, whatever you build, it's not market validated. You don't know the supply which you have built, how you have built that supply side of things. Will people onboard onto that or not? And that's why it's better to build demand first. So we went with a reverse manner where we didn't solve for supply first, we solved for demand first. And we took an approach of progressive decentralization where we say that we will not decentralize all the tech on day one. We'll decentralize things which could be decentralized on day one. And then we'll start basically once we reach a level of escape velocity on the demand side, then we'll build the supply side part of things. So the last 3.5 years, so Huddle was born in September 2020. For last 3.5 years, we built the demand first by ourselves. Number one was via our three-pronged approach. The first approach was building an app which exactly looks like Zoom and Google Meet. And you can do all the things which is possible on Google Meet and Zoom, but much more with an icing on cake with this Web3 primitives. That means NFT as an avatar, T has a token gated mechanisms, recording over IPFS, recording over Filecoin, and a myriad of different things. You can just basically make sure that your calls can get distributed into X, into YouTube, into Twitch in one click, which is not possible anywhere else. And you can integrate it into Calendar, you can integrate it into basically cal.com, Calendly, and all the other places. And that's how we started building it. As we built the demand side, we started understanding the problems which people face in the current communication realm. And that gave us a very good understanding that how a developer will also think. And that's where we just wrapped up our platform into an SDK as well, so that anyone who needs to add audio and video into their own products, they can also do that. So we first built an app, then we built an SDK. So in 1.5 years, we built the complete app, which is very scalable, similar scalability as Zoom, similar basically latency as Zoom. And then we built an SDK. In the SDK, it was plug and play. It means anyone in the world who wants to add audio and video into their own products in less than 5 lines of code, they can use our SDK. And why our SDK worked better was because we built the app ourselves, so we knew the problems developer will face while basically integrating SDKs. That worked out great. Lot of apps, especially in the Web3 world, which is built on top of Lens protocol, which is a social graph itself, use Huddle01's audio SDK for audio spaces, because X has audio spaces, and these Web3 social apps also are wanting to have audio spaces. That is first. Second, also in the Web2 world, lot of people are fed up with Agora. A lot of people are fed up with Twilios of the nature. Why? Because the customer support is not there for the small basic players. Number one. Number two is that the performance issues are still there. Number three is that they are not able to basically, for any kind of pricings, it's also abysmal. You don't have a great pricing model. It's very non-transparent in nature. And that's where people have started using our SDKs as well into the Web2 world. So that's how we entered the Web2 world as well, started signing LOIs, a letter of intent, started doing these contracted ARRs. And in 2024, we'll do actualized ARRs into which. And this happened because we first entered the market, saw the problems everywhere, both on the platform level as Zoom, on the CPaaS level, from the Agoras and Twilios and Vonage and Dailies of the nature, ring center of the nature. And we started building there. And now we understood this whole, we started getting demand. And now in the last 3.5 years, we got around 3 million minutes of demand on the platform, which was a very good escape velocity. And then we realized, hey, now people know our brand. Now we already have demand. Let's solve building supply. And that's when we started building the supply side, which is called Huddle01 nodes now, which is the last layer, which is the network layer, which is called dRTC network. And now all these demands could be routed through not the AWS, but actually through this decentralized nodes, which we are building right now. Now, this is very smart now, because even if the market is bull or bear, it doesn't matter, because the node providers already know that Huddle01 already has demand. So they will keep on running these apps, and it will not happen like a lot of DePIN-based projects which we have seen in the past, getting shut down because the supply getting shut down because there's no demand. And we won't face the problem because we've already started getting that demand. So that's why we went with the approach of demand first rather than supply first, and it has been turning out decent so far.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I like to point out that at Hotspotty, we've been using Huddle01 as our internal calls now. And it's been a really, really good experience so far. And I mean, kudos to you guys. Be building an amazing product that we're even thinking about, okay, we don't need Google Meet anymore for our calls. Let's start doing that for Huddle01. And even for our Calendly, we're thinking about start changing from Google Meet to Huddle01. The more we use DePIN projects, the more we support. And I mean, and the thing is that we haven't moved just because we're trying to help you guys, you know. The experience has been really good. The experience actually has been better than Google Meet. And the fact that, like you said, you can save the files in an IPFS or even download the call easily, seamlessly into my computer, it has been a much more interesting experience so far. So, and that's just the beginning, right? You guys have been building for quite some time now. Can you remind like one of the biggest challenges that you guys have in there, like supply, demand, software engineering? Because I can imagine that's not an easy project to build, right?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of problems on the engineering point of view, lot of problems. So WebRTC, as discussed, Daniel, it's a bunch of protocols stacked into one. And you have to do a lot of things to make sure that how you will be able to make sure that these calls which are happening, you get a complete picture of it in terms of scalability. So once we started scaling the calls, then we started getting that whole what kind of problems in the distributed system industry it is there to basically solve cascading. I'll give you an example right now on that. So for example, Discord, if you do a call on Discord right now, and if Ayush and Daniel are in India and Alex is in, let's suppose, US, the call on Discord, which is the audio call, which you can do on Discord, or the video call, or you do a screen share, you will see a lot of latency, lot of lag, lot of jitter, buffer, and the experience is not great. And Discord is a $16 billion company. Now, what they have not implemented yet is something called as cascading. Cascading means that how can you make sure that there is a server in India and then there's a server in US and they talk to each other. Right now, that's not happening. In Discord, there's something like there's just one single server that's based in US. So all the packets are out there and then it comes back. So the biggest problem for us was to solve for these things like cascading, which was solving scalability while ensuring quality. And the second bigger problem was that how do we make sure that these cascadings which are happening over these servers start happening over nodes? So how do you do that porting of all these things into that small box, which is called nodes? And that's where all the works and iterations on libp2p, which we did. Also working with all these different SFUs like MediaSoup was a bigger challenge for us. The third biggest challenge for us was essentially thinking about the same thing, Daniel, which we discussed in the last question, which is, should we solve demand, should we solve supply? And we took a very methodical approach of building the demand first. And yeah, we have been building in open. If you just go back in 2021, you'll see a lot of complaints that people are complaining that, hey, this thing is not working well. Can you solve this? Can you solve that? And that really helped us in basically getting a lot of validation from people that on what things don't work. And if people are complaining, that means they essentially like your product, they want you to improve. And because of that open building mindset, I think we're able to build an app which was very, very liked by people. And the same thing is happening now with SDKs. We have been getting a lot of great reviews on the SDKs because now people think that it's much more seamless than all the other, even the Web 2 central SDKs out there. So these things really helped us, but at the same time they were challenging. And fourth maybe was also the sales part of things, making sure that how do you extract away these Web3 lingos while talking to the Web2 players, talking to all these other guys. And that basically also became an art over time where they majorly cared about better performance, better privacy, and better pricing and better economics. So yeah, I think these four things were the biggest challenges for us. But yeah, I think over time we were able to overcome that. I think these last 3.5 years were a good test of time of that.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think like you said before, like you build the company as a Web2 first, and now to really, after you get scale velocity, you can grow as a Web3 project, right? This episode is brought to you by Chirp, a wireless network that aims to connect the largest number of devices with the blockchain. Writing device data on-chain opens up many possibilities and new real-world use cases. And Chirp does just that through its community-owned wireless network. Chirp has been actively building during the bear market, and it's expected to go live this year, so your timing is perfect. Chirp Network is already deployed in 27 countries by its early supporters, and it's backed by Mystine, the team behind the Sui blockchain. To become an early supporter, be sure to visit chirptoken.io and click on Become a Keeper. How does the privacy works on the technical side? Like, I can imagine everything is encrypted. How do you make sure that you're not listening to everyone that's having calls, for example?
Yeah, absolutely. So the best thing is that WebRTC in itself, a couple of encryption layers, which makes sure that it inherits in itself an encryption layer, which makes sure that you don't listen to the calls, all the routings which are happening, you're not able to basically listen to any of that. Secondly, on top of that, we have added our own E2E layer, which is completely end-to-end encrypted. Which makes sure that all the calls which are happening, all the routing which is happening of the packets, none of the packets could be opened. And now we are also adding on top of it a lot of other algorithms. So we're taking inspiration from Double Ratchet, which is taken by Signal. Signal uses that. Signal has open source that. I think that's something which is also used by WhatsApp now. So we have been taking inspiration on that. And then my co-founder and CTO Sushmita announced back in last year on how we basically made sure that 100 people call is completely E2E encrypted. That's on the right now on the current level, but we are doing the same thing right now also on the node level, making sure that now not just technologically but also economically you don't have any incentive to see anyone's data, because your hen's job is a proof of routing. You have to make sure that the routing happens in a completely perfect manner, and which makes sure that you don't have any incentive to see anyone's data. So that's these three kind of basically a pronged approach is how we make sure that none of your data is basically tracked off. And the fourth is that we also on the recording level we make sure that you have an optionality. You can record your calls over cloud, AWS, because people like that. You can record over IPFS or you can download yourself. And on the IPFS, you can make sure that you can submarine those IPFS files. So which makes sure that it completely is not something which can be accessed by anyone. And then we are also adding a Filecoin layer, which makes sure that all the recordings which you do, these recordings also is something which cannot be accessed by anyone else apart from you. So these are the 3-4 layers which is happening right now, and then also on the node level as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. For the nodes, what are the minimum requirements required? Because I think it's not out yet, right? What is it? Is in whitelisting? You guys doing some testing, and what would be the requirements to run a node?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are a couple of ways in which you can run nodes. One is the media server nodes. For that, the best thing is that if you basically use the devices which we are building, similar to how people have been using something like Bobcat miners or something like Hive Apple Dashcam. So we have basically built that device, which ensures that you need to have an 8-core kind of CPU. You need to have a 16 GB RAM. You need to have a kind of 1 Gbps based Ethernet speed of internet. And basically it is using just for compute and bandwidth. Now, either you can use our device or you can basically assemble this device yourself. Or thirdly, you can also use a light node client, which is your own browser for these kind of things. So in terms of the whitelisting, we'll be starting that in a couple of weeks time. That means people will be able to pre-order the device by themselves, and these devices they can run on their own at their own home, and they will be able to basically give their compute and bandwidth at the same time, and then basically be able to do the proof of routing to make sure that the calls which are happening is provable in nature, and it can make sure that these calls are essentially correct. It's happening, routing is happening in a correct manner, and that's why these nodes are there in the picture. But yeah, I think you can assemble it yourself. We'll also be releasing the docs on how you can assemble yourself, or how you can buy these devices yourself, or how can you can run it on your own laptop yourself. So all these three different things, it's best that if you use that device, but yeah, you can do it in any manner. And now the plan is to completely bootstrap a network of devices all across the earth to make sure that we build this people powered network, which acts like a constellation of better performance, better latency, and better costings, and also creates a new bottom up economy which hasn't been seen so far.
No,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Yeah, I can't wait for this to come out. Where do people can go to find out more about the releases and like be whitelisted and everything that's happening?
Yeah, absolutely. So people can go on to Twitter. That's where we announce everything first. We are active at Huddle01.com. That's our handle, Huddle01 in numeric and COM. Or you can go on Discord. That's where we essentially talk about all the alphas. We do a community call every month, and we talk about when the node is coming out, how you can run the nodes yourself, and how essentially you can be a part of the whitelisting sessions which are happening. So yeah, that's the best places to find us about. And also, if you want to DM me, I'm also active on Twitter at Ranjan3118. That's my Twitter handle. But yeah, that's how we are doing it. I would love to for people to test it out, to try it out, to pre-order it, and basically create this network which can make sure that communication becomes much more seamless over time.
Nice. Yeah, us at the Hotspotty on DePIN Hub as well, we'll try to announce to our listeners in our community whenever it comes out, so we can try to get more and more people to try it out, right? Because I think this is a very valuable project that you guys are building. One thing that I didn't really found online yet, you guys are moving towards the Web3. Do you already have like a layer 1 protocol that you're thinking about doing? Do people gonna then later pay for usage of this project in tokens? How the Web3 angle is gonna look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a great question, and over time, this will become like a dRTC based transactions, which is decentralized real time communication transactions, where the unit commodity service is minutes. The number of minutes you consume, basically how you pay. So if let's suppose if you consume 1,000 minutes of service, so you pay either via the fiat mode or you pay via the Huddle tokens itself, and basically you will get a discounted service if you use Huddle01 tokens to pay for these services. So yeah, I think this is how the whole model will look like in terms of our layer of where the settlement will happen. That's where we are basically figuring out the system designs on what is the best right now. We know that we have been seeing and tracking a couple of other projects who are doing fantastic job. For example, Demo right now using Polygon, a couple of others which are on Solana. So basically figuring out which is the best settlement layer for us. But yeah, that design decision is something which will also be taking in a month and a half time on where should we basically go towards in terms of settlement. But right now, the major focus is to bootstrap supply to make sure at least we have enough supply side things on top of it. And once we are able to do that, then basically going deep down the system design architecture level and making sure that where these dRTC transactions will settle, because the mainnet has a couple of months time right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I see a lot of projects, for example, the Grass is doing is that while you try to figure out the best like layer 1 protocol, etc., to build a project, you can distribute points, right? Like a point system that can later be translated into like some actually real tokens. So you don't need to wait until you have the blockchain things figure it out to start actually rewarding the users to be early adopters, to deploying the hardware and testing everything, giving feedback. Can you talk about the future? I like to understand, like you guys have been building for quite some time now. You're getting ready to release, let's say, like the supply side. How do you see Huddle01 going from the next year to the next 5 years? What is the like long-term vision?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the long-term vision is essentially to never compete with the likes of basically Zoom on the platform level, or to compete with Agora on the level of infrastructure, but essentially to compete with the most bottom layer, which is where on the network layer, which is the basically becoming a better cloud provider in terms of edges. So we are building a network where we've already bootstrapped demands ourselves, And the end goal is that is for Zoom and the Agoras of the nature to see that, hey, this network which they have built is much, much more better than the current centralized counterparts. So next 5 years looks like is that Zoom and all the apps, rather than running on a centralized server, they run on this people powered device which we have been building so far. So that's how we look into the future. Apart from that, we want to make sure that the calls right now which is happening, the network, we have solved for a lot of things. Maybe in 5 years we'll be reaching near AGI, but still doing a call in a 2D based environment is something which is a kind of not a great innovation which has happened in RTC for a long, long time. So video tech needs to basically become much, much more immersive over time. And I just want to go into a history lesson back in the day, where if you read Sapiens and the book by Harari, you would have seen that there was a fight between Neanderthals and there was a fight between Homo sapiens. And the reason why Homo sapiens won was because they were able to communicate better, collaborate better, and hence innovate on the tools better, so that they were able to defeat the Neanderthals. And right now, the Neanderthals for us are nothing but climate change, are the problems of healthcare, are the problems of education, are the problems of the current basically wars which are happening. And to solve that, we need to make sure that our communication doesn't happen in a walls of a 2D screen, but becomes much more immersive, so that people can come together, collaborate together, innovate better. So the next 5 years, we look forward to this. We breaking the shackles of these 2D screens and becoming much more expansive in nature. And humans shouldn't communicate in the way they are doing it right now. And there are a couple of hardwares that are coming out. We need to make sure that these hardwares also become much more better. But things like which is happening in the layer of these Apple-based devices which are coming with your headsets, how do you make sure that still the infrastructure becomes so seamless that you are able to do a calls in a holographic fashion, where you are near to your friend and you can collaborate better. Group of scientists coming together, they can collaborate better to solve climate change and a lot of other things. Very good snapshot of like a snap of that would be Lex Friedman and the call of Mark Zuckerberg, but that was just the start. That still requires a better infrastructure. But if you're able to solve that, you can essentially have a call where you are just with your friend and you are just with your group, your founder, you're just with your group of scientists, and you're able to basically make sure that humans are able to reach a much better innovation scale very fast. And that's what our plan is in the next 5 years.
Wow, that's exciting. Yeah, I can totally see that, right? Like, I think that's where we're going forward. And I love to see that you guys are building this, and Web3 and DePIN is going to be a core part of everything that you're building, and how we're going to change like the future in a way that everybody can get rewarded by building the infrastructure, being part of it, and not just like a few major. Some more, do you have any other final remarks that you'd like to tell people, where to know about your project, how to follow, and so on?
Yeah, I think you completely summed it up in the last line. I think making things people powered is something which the DePIN is solving right now, with decreasing the capex and the opex. You could see that with the first DePIN, which is the poster boy called Helium. We started off with an IoT Bobcat miner, and now also with Helium Mobile. Now you can see that how an $80 which you're paying per month can become a $5 per month, and these things are happening with a better quality and much, much better pricing. And I think that's happening in IoT, that's happening in Bluetooth, that's happening in 5G, and that the same thing is now going to happen in RTC. Our devices are starting to become better. Our crypto economic tools are starting to become better. So now, similar to how you can have an Helium device, now you can also have an Huddle01 device, and you can just make sure that you control the audio and video which you do, and you also become a kind of service provider for other calls which are happening near your area, and you earn based on that. Basically, get a new alternate income, and yeah, we make everything a better place.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks so much for being in the podcast. It was a great interview. I really like the things that you guys are building. Make sure to go to huddle01.com, and that's HUDDLE01.com. Also follow Twitter, check our website, DePINHub.io, follow us on like social media, and of course the YouTube and Spotify and everything, because we're trying to build this platform for you guys, the listeners. And our goal is to onboard millions of people into Web3. And we believe that's going to be through DePIN, because like I like to say, DePIN is the gateway drug into Web3. And yeah, let's go. I'm so excited about this. I can't wait to get out of this call and start playing around more with Huddle01 when everything that you guys are building. Well, Ayush, thanks so much for your time. It was a pleasure. And I hope to have you here again to see the next steps, maybe to announce the hardware and other things as well.
Thanks so much, Daniel. It was great having you, and thanks for doing what you're doing. I think it's very important for people to know about DePIN, and I think you are the one-stop days in terms of your YouTube channel where things are happening. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Have a good one, man. Bye bye.